Hello and welcome to this space of serenity. Wherever you are right now, allow yourself to take a deep, slow breath in and a long, relaxing exhale out. Let go of all the thoughts and concerns of the day. They no longer hold any relevance. Tonight, we will embark on a journey that goes beyond familiar experience, past the edges of our maps and even outside the boundaries of our conventional understanding of time. Imagine a place, a world, a planet, where the fundamental law of our universe, the arrow of time, points in the exact opposite direction. What if you didn't grow older, but instead grew younger? What if you remembered the future, yet had no knowledge of the past? In this sleep lecture, we will explore this paradoxical world together. Do not try to analyze, simply listen. Allow the images to form in your mind, lulling you gently and carrying you into a deep, restorative sleep. Are you ready to journey to a place where the end is only the beginning? But before our spaceship of thought reaches its destination, let us pause for a moment in the space we already know. In our universe, time flows in only one direction, from the past to the future. Scientists call this the arrow of time, and the primary driver of this arrow is the second law of thermodynamics, a concept known as entropy. Simply put, entropy is the measure of disorder or chaos in a system. And this law dictates that in a closed system, such as our universe, disorder must always increase. A cup dropped from a table shatters into countless pieces, increasing the chaos. It will never spontaneously reassemble itself. Hot tea cools down, releasing heat into the environment, but cold tea will not heat itself up again. This is the movement of time as we know it, from order to chaos, from birth to death. But what if we were to imagine a place where this fundamental law was reversed, where entropy does not increase but decreases, where shattered cups reassemble themselves on the table and cooled tea becomes hot once more? This is the world we are headed for, a world with a reversed arrow of time. This is not just fantasy, it is a thought experiment that forces us to look anew at the very fabric of reality. And now we are ready to take the leap into this unbelievable reality. Our ship is slowing down. Outside the viewport is the blackness of space, but it's different here. The stars aren't just shining, they seem to be drawing their light back into themselves, growing brighter and hotter, preparing for their birth in a dazzling flash. This is the first sign we've crossed the boundary. We are approaching the planet we've named Chronos Inversus. From orbit, it looks mesmerizing. The clouds don't drift across the sky. Instead, they condense out of thin air, only to rain upwards back into the heavens. Rivers don't flow toward the ocean, but away from it, branching into thousands of streams that race toward the mountain tops. Mountains are not worn down by erosion, they slowly grow, gathering dust and stone into unified, majestic peaks. We prepare for landing. The ship's systems confirm the atmosphere is breathable, yet the very feeling of approaching this land is strange. There is a sense of déjà vu mixed with utter unfamiliarity, like returning to a place you've never been, yet somehow remember. It's your future self sending you signals, memories of what hasn't happened to you yet, but already occurred for them. The airlock doors hiss open. The atmosphere smells of ozone and damp earth, yet it is the scent not of decay, but of creation. You take your first step onto the surface of a planet where time flows in reverse, and the world around you begins to slowly assemble itself, moving from future to past. This first step is, in reality, your final one on this planet. You have just arrived, but your journey here is already drawing toward its beginning. Feel the soft, yielding soil beneath your boots. It doesn't compress. It loosens with every future step you take, preparing itself to receive you. This is a world where the footprint appears on the ground before you step, where the echo precedes the word, and you stand at the threshold of this world, at the point of your arrival, which for the inhabitants marks the moment of your departure. Taking a moment to look around, you observe the local flora. Trees here don't sprout from seeds and grow upwards. Quite the opposite. These mighty, sprawling giants slowly begin to compress. Their branches retract into the trunk, leaves curl back into buds, and the trunk itself thins until it becomes a tiny sapling. That sapling then draws back into the earth, leaving behind only a single seed. You notice a fallen leaf on the ground. It doesn't decompose. Instead, it slowly turns green, absorbing its moisture and vitality until, in one sudden motion, it lifts off the ground, flying up to reattach itself perfectly to a tree branch. The entire plant life cycle here is a journey from complexity to simplicity, from death to birth. Flowers don't bloom. Rather, they fold their petals back into tightly closed buds, concealing their beauty from the world. Fruits never fall from the branch. Instead, they fly up from the ground, gradually shrinking in size until they turn back into a flower. This spectacle is simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling. It violates our most fundamental biological instincts. We are conditioned to see growth and blossoming as symbols of life and wilting as a symbol of the end. Here, the opposite is true. Wilting is merely the prelude to vibrant color, while growth is the path toward eventual disappearance. You approach one of these trees. Its bark feels warm and vital beneath your fingers. You can sense the sap running beneath the surface, but it flows not upward toward the leaves, but downward toward the roots, channeling energy back into the earth. The tree is not a consumer, but a donor. Normally, trees collect carbon dioxide to release pure oxygen, but here the process is inverted. This tree inhales oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide, which is then absorbed by the animals. This ecosystem is a perfectly closed loop, yet it operates in a direction entirely alien to our understanding. Standing in the shadow of this withering giant, you realize this is not its end, but its dawn. Its most glorious time, its true youth, lies ahead, when it is finally a tiny, fragile sprout. This forces a profound reflection on our own perception of life and death. Perhaps our end is simply someone else's beginning. Now let's observe the unique fauna populating this world. Off in the distance, you spot a herd of graceful, deer-like animals, but they aren't grazing. Instead, they are regurgitating perfectly masticated grass, which miraculously reassembles itself into whole, pristine blades on the meadow floor. These animals don't consume, they unconsume. Their entire digestive process is reversed. They gain energy as they expel food, synthesizing complex organic substances from simpler ones in the process. Their life cycle is equally inverted. The old, wise individuals, repositories of lifetimes of experience, eventually lie down and decompose back into basic elements. These elements are then gathered within their mother's body, where they reconstitute into infants, small and vigorous. Predators do not hunt. They seek out already deceased prey, which then resurrects within their very jaws. Once restored to full health and vigor, the predator releases it back into the wild. The predator-prey dynamic here is an act of creation, not destruction. This is a world where the danger isn't being consumed, but rather being made. Observe a bird in flight. It moves tail first, beating its wings to decelerate rather than accelerate. It doesn't construct a nest. It meticulously dismantles one, twig by painful twig. Fledglings do not hatch. They climb back into the shell, which instantly reseals itself, allowing the mother to reabsorb the egg into her body. Even the sounds of this world are inverted. Birds don't sing. They sing silence, pulling the stillness into their beaks. Their calls begin at maximum volume, reaching a crescendo that then fades back into total quiet. The predator's roar is not a threat of attack, but a signal that the act of resurrection for the prey has been successfully concluded. This entire fauna exists in perfect harmony, a harmony built entirely upon principles that are the inverse of our own. Here, survival is not a struggle for resources, but the process of giving them away. Strength lies not in the capacity to take a life, but in the power to restore it. Observing these astonishing creatures, you begin to grasp that existence can manifest in the most unimaginable forms, and that the fundamental laws of life may not be nearly as absolute as we perceive them to be. It's time we talked about the intelligent life of Chronos inversus. What would a society where time flows backward look like? Picture a city where buildings aren't erected, they are slowly and methodically dismantled. Shining new skyscrapers gradually decay into ruins, which are then disassembled brick by brick until nothing but a bare field remains. To the inhabitants of this world, ruins aren't a symbol of decay, but a harbinger of future glory. They look at a crumbling structure and envision the glorious palace it will eventually become. Their architecture is the architecture of predictable disintegration. The residents of this world, let's call them chrononauts, are born from the earth. At the end of their journey, an old, wise person lies down in a grave, and their body slowly reassembles inside a mother's womb. Birth is their most tragic moment, signifying the beginning of their slow farewell to the world. Death, conversely, is the happiest, marking the ultimate gain of all knowledge and experience. Wisdom, they will spend their life in reverse, gradually losing. They are born old, possessing the wisdom of the world, but with every passing day, they grow younger and dumber, forgetting everything they knew. Their education is a process of unlearning. Children attend school not to accumulate knowledge, but to get rid of it, to forget complex theorems and embrace simple truths. Their goal is to shed information so that by the time they reach their death in infancy, they achieve a state of pure, innocent ignorance. Their language is also reversed. They speak sentences starting at the end. To understand them, you must wait for the phrase to finish and mentally rewind it. "We'll go well everything for you," they say, and for them it sounds perfectly natural. You walk down a street in this city and see people moving backward. They never look where they are going because they already remember exactly where they are going to arrive. Let's take a deep dive into the psychology of chrononauts. How do they perceive the world when they have memories of the future, yet no knowledge whatsoever of the past? For them, concepts like surprise or unexpectedness simply don't exist. Every single day is predetermined by their memories. They know who they will meet, what they will say, and even what they will feel. Their lives are not a series of discoveries, but a chain of predictable losses. They know when they will meet the love of their life, but they also know the exact date and time they will fall out of love, the very moment they meet for the first time, to become strangers again. Imagine relationships in this world. They begin with the sorrow of a breakup. Two people who were once together meet to say goodbye forever. Then, as they age in reverse, their relationship grows warmer and closer. They share maturity, passion, and true falling in love until they finally arrive at their very first, most exciting date. And after that, they pass each other on the street, two complete strangers walking by. Their love is a journey from a bitter finale to a joyous beginning, which simultaneously marks the very end of their acquaintance. What about crime and punishment? Their justice system operates preventively. A person is incarcerated not for what they have done, but for what they will do. They walk free at the very moment they commit the crime, because their sentence has already been served. To them, this is logical. The punishment must precede the transgression in order to prevent it. But the paradox is that it doesn't prevent it. It merely guarantees that the event will happen. Their entire existence is saturated with fatalism. They have no concept of free will as we understand it, because the future has already happened and is imprinted in their memory. They cannot change their actions, as this would violate the cause and effect relationship, which, in their world, operates in reverse. They are actors in a play they have already watched, forced to perform their roles right up until the very beginning. Let's explore the economics and technology of a world operating in reverse time. Here, production is actually a process of complete disassembly, or demanufacturing. Instead of creating new goods, factories receive used and broken items from consumers and unproduce them, reducing them back to their raw materials. A line worker doesn't assemble a car, they meticulously dismantle it piece by piece until all that remains is a pile of metal, plastic, and rubber feedstock. Wealth isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you successfully divest yourself of. The wealthiest individuals are those who live in empty homes, having successfully unbought all their furniture and electronics. Money flows in the opposite direction. When you purchase something, you hand over the item and receive money for it. Your wallet doesn't empty, it fills up. Consequently, everyone's goal is not to earn but to spend as much as possible. Work is a place where you go to pay money and perform a task that results in a decrease of order. Take the example of a firefighter. They don't extinguish a blaze, they ignite it. They arrive at a burned-down structure and use specialized equipment to restore the building from the ashes, returning the flame to its source. To them, the firefighter is a hero, a restorer, a creator. What about technology? Computers don't compute, they decompute or reverse calculate. You input the final answer and the program finds the original data and the corresponding problem. The internet is not a network for gathering information, but for forgetting it. You log onto a website and the information is erased from your mind and simultaneously wiped from the server. For them, progress is regression. The newest technologies are the most primitive ones. Their civilization moves backward, away from complex spacecraft and artificial intelligence, towards steam engines, and eventually to stone tools. Their golden age lies in the distant future, which, for us, is their primitive past. This is a world where innovation means simplification, and development is a return to the fundamentals. Strange as it may sound, there is a certain logic to it all. Art and culture on Chronos Inversus are a distinct and utterly captivating subject. Imagine the painter. They don't take a clean canvas to apply colors. Quite the opposite. They begin with a finished masterpiece. Their task is, stroke by careful stroke, to meticulously remove the paint until the canvas is absolutely pristine. The act of creation here is the act of erasure. The greatest artists are those who leave behind the purest, whitest canvases. A sculptor starts with a finished statue and slowly, piece by piece, accretes marble onto it until it transforms into a shapeless, monolithic block. Their goal is to conceal the form, not reveal it to the world. Musicians perform their symphonies in reverse. The concert begins with a burst of deafening applause in absolute silence. The orchestra then proceeds to play the final movement first, moving backward from loud, triumphant chords toward quiet, gentle ones. The music doesn't progress. It recedes, contracting until it resolves into a single, solitary note, after which silence settles over the hall and the audience departs. Writers do not write books, they unwrite them. They take a completed volume, and page by page, word by word, they methodically scrub the text away until only a stack of blank pages remains. For them, the great novel is the one that will ultimately hold not a single remaining word. History, as a science, functions as the prediction of the past. Historians study the future to discern which events culminated in the present they already remember. Their archives are filled with documents that have yet to be written. They know how a war will conclude even before it begins, but they do not know what sparked it. Their central mission is to locate that root cause in the past, which for them remains hazy and utterly unknown. Their entire culture is a profound reflection of their perception of time. It does not aspire toward creating the new, but toward returning to the pristine and original state. It seeks not self-expression, but self-oblivion. This is a culture that values silence over music and emptiness over form. Let's talk about birth and death, or, as the chrononauts call them, the arrival and the farewell. For them, the farewell is the most crucial and joyous moment of life. When an individual reaches the peak of their vitality, roughly equivalent to 100 years in our reckoning, they feel an overwhelming urge to return to the source. They travel to a special location, which we might call a graveyard, but which is more accurately defined as a birth ground. There they lie down in the soil. Their body doesn't decompose. On the contrary, it begins to condense, shrinking and compacting into a single cell, which then, in a mystical transition, finds its way into the body of their future mother. This entire process is surrounded by rituals and celebration. Relatives gather to congratulate the dying individual, on their imminent birth. They sing joyful songs and reminisce about the life they are about to live. Death here is not a tragedy. It is a triumph. It is the moment when a person finally sheds the burden of the physical form and transitions into a state of pure potential. The arrival, or birth, however, is a sorrowful event. It occurs in deep old age. The person comes into the world already possessing wrinkles, grey hair, and a complete set of memories of their future life. They know all the sorrows and joys they are destined to unlearn. Their first words are not babbling but wise pronouncements, yet their body is frail and weak. The family meets the newborn elder with quiet sadness. They know a long and difficult journey awaits them, a path down the ladder of life. They will have to lose friends and loved ones as those individuals come to be born. They will have to forget cherished books and music. They will become intellectually weaker until they reach the state of a carefree yet ignorant infant preparing for their ultimate farewell. This inversion of the most fundamental concepts known to us creates an entirely different value system. They do not fear death, they anticipate it, and they do not celebrate birth, but rather they sympathize with the newborn. We should examine the concept of information and knowledge within this inverted reality. Since the chrononauts possess memories of the future, the very idea of discovery is entirely obsolete. Everything that could ever be invented has already materialized in their future, and they hold those blueprints in their minds. Their scientific endeavors are not dedicated to seeking novelty, but rather to cataloging and systematizing known facts. The scientist in this society is less an explorer and more a meticulous archivist. They do not run experiments to find an outcome. They already know the conclusion. Instead, they perform the test solely to witness the process by which the predetermined result unfolds. Consider the library of Chronos Inversus. Books here are not written, but unwritten. New volumes materialize on the shelves fully formed, their authors and date of creation unknown. The librarian's primary duty is not conservation, but ensuring the timely erasure and removal of the texts. Knowledge is not a boon, it is a profound burden. The more one learns, the more they are obligated to unlearn. Their educational system is structured around a principle of controlled degradation. Students enter university as conceptual geniuses and graduate merely as erudite specialists. In college, they shed their specific expertise for broader general knowledge. In primary school, they lose even that, retaining only the absolute fundamentals. It is in the kindergarten that they achieve true, blissful ignorance. Their entire intellectual development is a downward trajectory, a journey from omniscience back to innocence. News reports in their world are always focused on the past. A newscaster might announce, "An event occurred yesterday which directly resulted in the reality we all currently remember." For the chrononauts, the past is the ultimate enigma, a mystery that must be unraveled to grasp the causes behind the effects they already know. They function like detectives who are certain of the killer's identity but remain totally ignorant of the motive and circumstances of the crime. This existence fosters a profoundly strange mental state. They inhabit a universe of absolute rigid predictability, yet they are simultaneously devoid of any understanding of the root causes. They know the what, but they are blind to the why. Their ultimate wisdom is the passive acceptance of the fatalist. They have embraced their destiny without ever comprehending its origins. And perhaps this fact encapsulates their greatest tragedy, the burden of knowing everything yet understanding nothing. Let us contemplate the laws and ethics governing a society of chrononauts. As we have already established, in their world, punishment precedes the crime. But how does this affect moral choice? If an individual knows they will commit a harmful act in the future and has already served their sentence for it, do they have any incentive not to commit the act? No. On the contrary, they are morally obligated to commit it, thereby completing the causal loop. In their reality, the concepts of sin or guilt are non-existent. There is only inevitability. A person bears no responsibility for their future actions because they are powerless to change them. They are simply following a script already imprinted on their memory. Their ethics are not rooted in free will, but rather in the aesthetics of execution. A good person is not defined by those who perform good deeds, but by those who follow their predetermined destiny, be it the fate of a hero or a villain, with the utmost precision and grace. Judges here do not deliver sentences, they annul them. The process unfolds as follows. The convicted person is released from prison, they commit the destined crime, and then they appear in court, where the judge reads an acquittal, because the sentence has already been served. The police don't investigate crimes, they preempt them, arresting individuals years before the act is ever committed. Crucially, this arrest doesn't alter the future, it merely validates it. But what of good deeds? Here, charity is an act of retraction. You approach the poor person and take back the money or food that they received from you in the future. By helping someone, you are essentially creating a future problem, a debt that you yourself will be destined to solve later. Their entire social system is a complex choreography of predetermination where every step is known in advance. There is no room for spontaneity, mercy, or redemption as we understand it. There is only the flawless adherence to the temporal stream which carries everyone from the end back toward the beginning. Let's take a moment to imagine the daily life of a typical chrononaut. Their morning routine begins when they wake up feeling completely refreshed and energized. Instead of eating breakfast, they quite literally uneat it, regurgitating the food which neatly reassembles itself on the plate. This process restores the energy they need for the day ahead. Next, they head to work, where for 8 hours they engage in destructive labor, perhaps dismantling a building they finished constructing yesterday. Crucially, they pay their employer for the privilege of working. After work, they return home, which progressively becomes dirtier and more cluttered, because for them, the act of cleaning involves scattering trash and making a mess. In the evening, they meet with friends. Their conversation starts with a final farewell, and then they proceed to discuss tomorrow's events they already vividly remember. They laugh at jokes that haven't been told yet, and argue about films they haven't seen. They then part ways only to meet for the very first time the following day. Before bed, the chrononaut doesn't read a book. Instead, they unread it, wiping several pages of text from their memory. They lie down, and their body slowly accumulates fatigue, ensuring they wake up energized in the morning. Their dreams aren't recollections of the past, but crystal clear memories of the future. They dream of what will happen to them tomorrow, the day after, or a year from now. For them, sleep isn't an escape from reality. It's a dress rehearsal for the future. To us, this whole routine might seem utterly absurd and meaningless, but for them it's profoundly meaningful. They find beauty in predictability, peace in inevitability, and joy in following their predetermined path. Their lives are free of anxiety about the future because the future is already known. Yet they are filled with sadness about the past because the past remains an eternal mystery. How do the people of Chrono Inversus perceive the past, present, and future? For us, the future is a field of possibilities, and the past is an unchangeable certainty. For them, it's the exact opposite. For them, the future is something that has already happened and is fixed in memory. It is solid, immutable, etched in stone like granite. They can recall their future just as clearly as we recall our past. I remember breaking my leg 10 years from now, a chrononaut might say. And that memory is as undeniable a fact to them as our memory of a high school graduation is to us. The present is merely a fleeting moment where those memories of the future become reality, the instant when the predetermined comes to pass. They live through the present like we watch a movie, already knowing the ending. There is no tension, no intrigue. There is only the process of observing everything unfold as it should. But the past is their terra incognita, the unknown territory. They have no idea what came before their current now. They can only formulate hypotheses based on the effects they observe around them. For example, seeing ruins, they know that in their future a beautiful castle will stand here. But they don't know who built those ruins or why. For them, the past is a realm of speculation, myths, and legends. Their history isn't a chronicle of facts, it's a collection of cold cases and detective investigations. This inversion of temporal perspective fundamentally alters their entire worldview. They don't make plans for the future because those plans have already been made for them. Instead, they try to solve the mysteries of the past. They don't strive for progress because they already know the regression that awaits them. Their primary philosophical challenge is not to change the world, but to understand why it became the way they remember it in their future. Let's take a closer look at the language and communication systems found on this incredible planet. While we know they speak sentences in reverse, that's really only the beginning. Their communication entirely lacks the element of surprise. When two chrononauts initiate a conversation, they both already know every single word that is about to be uttered. Dialogue for them isn't an exchange of novel information, but rather a ritualistic confirmation of what they already perceive. Picture this: you meet a friend, and instead of starting with, "Hi, how are you?" the conversation opens with, "Goodbye, it was nice chatting." You then sequentially unremember all the topics discussed until you arrive. At the moment your friend asks the question you have already answered. The very act of speaking for them is the process of generating silence. Sound waves do not radiate from the speaker. Rather, they converge back toward the speaker's mouth from the surrounding environment. When a chrononaut talks, they are actually absorbing sound, not producing it. Written language is equally inverted. They write from right to left, and the letters appear fully formed on the paper, while the pen essentially erases them. The process of writing a letter is transforming a filled sheet into a blank one. Conversely, reading involves watching the characters spontaneously materialize on a pristine page. Due to this phenomenon, they have no concept of authorship. A book is never created by a writer, it simply manifests itself from the future. Consequently, all creative works are considered to be in the public domain. Lying is impossible within their society. How could one possibly deceive another about the future if your conversational partner remembers the outcome just as clearly as you do? Any attempt at prevarication would be instantly recognized and nullified. As a result, their communication is brutally honest and entirely straightforward, yet this honesty is completely devoid of warmth. There is no room for compliments as the praise is already known. There is no space for comfort because the outcome has already been predetermined. Their language serves as a precise yet utterly cold instrument for documenting the inevitable. Let's delve into the physical laws that might govern such a world. The cornerstone of everything is reversed entropy. While chaos in our universe only increases over time, in Chronos inversus, any system strives toward order. Items scattered around a room spontaneously arrange themselves neatly onto shelves. Mixed liquids separate back into their constituent parts. Heat doesn't dissipate, it concentrates. If you leave a glass of room temperature water out, one half of it will gradually become hot, while the other half turns into ice. The second law of thermodynamics operates here with the opposite sign. What about other laws? Gravity probably works the same way, attracting objects to one another, but the consequences of this attraction are fundamentally different. For example, a star doesn't collapse under gravity to ignite. Instead, it expels matter, expanding until it reverts into a cold cloud of gas. Planets don't form from dust, they disintegrate back into it. Electromagnetism must also be inverted. Light is not emitted from a source, it is absorbed by it. A light bulb doesn't shine, it draws the light out of the room, turning dark. Radio waves don't transmit a signal, they receive it from the future. Perhaps their entire universe isn't expanding after a Big Bang, but rather contracting, preparing for the big crunch. Every atom, every particle in their reality moves along a trajectory inverse to ours. It is a mirror world, an antithesis, where cause and effect have been completely reversed. And to exist within it means constantly feeling this fundamental contradiction against your very nature, which is accustomed to time marching relentlessly forward. Let us delve into the realm of chrononauts' dreams and subconscious minds. If their waking existence is a strict adherence to an already known future, what truly occurs when they close their eyes? We might initially assume their dreams are merely a rehearsal for tomorrow, but perhaps the truth is far more complex. Maybe it is only in sleep that their minds find a loophole, an escape route from the prison of predetermination. Perhaps while dreaming, they are not viewing the future, but the past, not what will happen, but what has been. Sleep becomes their sole means of peering behind the veil of the unknown that conceals their very origins. In these visions, they witness their cities being built, their books being written, and their ancestors making profound discoveries. These dreams are often hazy, fragmented, much like our own attempts to recall distant memories. They strive to interpret, analyze, and piece these fragments together into a coherent picture of their own history. In their society, psychoanalysts don't focus on childhood traumas, since childhood for them still lies ahead. Instead, they specialize in interpreting these historical dreams, helping patients understand where they came from. For them, nightmares are not dread of the future, but terror of the historical unknown. The most terrifying dream of all is to witness the moment their world was created, to comprehend the root cause of their reversed flow of time. Such knowledge could utterly shatter their comfortable, predictable reality. The subconscious, therefore, transforms into a forbidden repository of free will, of the possibility of choice, of a world where time actually flows forward. And perhaps upon waking, some of them feel this brief calling of freedom, this deep yearning for an unknown future. But then, the memories of what must happen take hold once more, and they settle back into their customary, predetermined existence. Sleep for them is their small, secret rebellion against time itself. So, what role do war and conflict play in a society like this? Wars on Chronos Inversus are an incredibly strange phenomenon. They begin with the signing of a peace treaty. Two nations currently enjoying peace suddenly decide that they were enemies in the future and sign a document concluding their future war. This is followed by the process of de-escalation. Ruined cities slowly rebuild themselves from the debris. Instead of dying on the battlefield, soldiers resurrect from the dead. The wounded heal, and bullets fly out of their bodies and back into the rifle barrels. Battle is not chaos and violence, but an ordered, meticulous process where everything moves in reverse. Generals issue commands that cancel previous attacks. Soldiers retreat from captured positions. The war effectively ends with the first shot fired, after which both armies return in perfect order to their initial staging points. This leaves behind the very animosity that fueled the future conflict in the first place. The motivation for war here is also unique. They don't fight over resources or ideology. They fight simply because they remember having fought. It is their temporal duty to carry out what has already been predetermined. Propaganda does not incite hatred for the enemy. It reminds citizens of the conflict's absolute inevitability. Patriotism is the willingness to die only to resurrect on the battlefield later. Even the creation of weapons is backward. Factories produce not finished tanks, but heaps of scrap metal, which then assemble themselves into war machines on the battlefield. All of this transforms war into a tragic yet unavoidable ritual, one where there are no winners and no losers. There are only participants fulfilling their roles in a known, predetermined drama. Let's delve into the spiritual beliefs of chrononauts. Given that their future is known, but the past remains an impenetrable mystery, what foundation do their spiritual doctrines rest upon? Their deities aren't creators, they are the dismantlers of the world. They hold that in the distant, misty past, a time completely obscured to them, a supreme entity or group of beings initiated the universe. The mission of their current gods is to systematically and deliberately disassemble that creation, returning it to its original state of primal nothingness. Their prophets are not those who foresee the future, everyone already knows that, but rather those who strive to remember the past. These are mystic historians utilizing deep meditation and intricate rituals to peer behind the veil of time, hoping to witness the genesis of creation itself. Their sacred texts are books yet to be written. They believe that revelations concerning their origins will manifest upon the currently blank pages of their future. Prayer for them is not an appeal regarding the future, but an expression of gratitude for the past they cannot recall. They thank the deities for having once created a world that now moves so beautifully and methodically toward its own beginning. Their concepts of heaven and hell are similarly inverted. Heaven is not eternal life after death. It is the absolute state of non-existence before birth, a return to the source, a merger with the absolute. Hell, conversely, is life itself. It is the burden of knowing the future, the endless cycle of loss and eventual oblivion. Consequently, their ultimate spiritual goal is not to save the soul, but to be rid of it entirely. They aim to traverse the path gracefully, moving from the wise elder back to the innocent infant, and finally embracing the farewell, the joyful birth into non-being. Their religion is one of total fatalism and deep acceptance, where the highest virtue is not to wrestle with destiny, but to follow its course with profound gratitude. Let's imagine medicine and health on a planet where time flows backward. Here, diseases don't develop, they unwind. People don't fall ill, they recover. The process starts when an absolutely healthy person suddenly begins taking medication. Symptoms of an illness then appear, gradually subsiding until they reach the moment the patient was first infected or injured. The doctor here is not someone who heals, but someone who gets sick. Their job is not to diagnose and prescribe treatment. Instead, faced with a healthy patient, they must determine which illness the patient will recover from in the future and prescribe preventative medication that will lead to the emergence of symptoms. Surgeons don't operate, they unstitch wounds. A patient arrives with a healed scar. The surgeon makes an incision, and the wound then closes itself on the patient's body, expelling a bullet or shrapnel. The process of aging as we know it is actually rejuvenation, but this also comes with its own set of diseases. For example, senile dementia here is infant genius. A person is born with all knowledge, but as they rejuvenate, their brain degrades, and they lose memory and cognitive function. Mental disorders also exist. Depression is not a baseless sadness about the past, but a baseless joy regarding the future, a future everyone knows is full of loss. Anxiety disorder is not the fear of an unknown future, but a panic terror of an unknown past. The entire healthcare system is not geared towards sustaining life, but toward its orderly conclusion, or rather, its beginning. The goal of medicine is not to extend life, but to help a person traverse their journey of rejuvenation as smoothly as possible, allowing them to meet their infancy with dignity and fade into non-existence. How do the chrononauts perceive us, travelers from a world defined by linear, forward-moving time? To them, we are an anomaly, a sheer paradox. We are flowing in the wrong direction. When we speak, they hear our words played in reverse, pure gibberish. When we walk, we move face first, an act they view as incredibly reckless, since we have no sight of where we are going to arrive. Our very presence in their timeline is an event that was never recorded in their memory of the future. We are the sole element of unpredictability in their meticulously ordered universe. This evokes a volatile mix of emotions. On one hand, there is profound curiosity. We are living proof that alternate timelines and alternative past can exist. We are the potential key to unlocking the mystery of their own origins. They attempt to study us, analyzing our behavior, our language, to comprehend the structure of our forward-moving world. On the other hand, there is deep-seated fear. We shatter their established harmony. We inject chaos into their perfect predictability. Any interaction we have with their reality could trigger unpredictable ripple effects and create catastrophic temporal paradoxes. What if we tell them about their own past? Will this dismantle their civilization entirely, or conversely, will it grant them a completely new purpose? This necessity mandates extreme caution. They establish highly controlled zones where we are permitted to exist without interfering with the regular flow of their lives. Communication is handled only by specialized translators, individuals trained to perceive and process information across two simultaneous temporal currents. To them, we are simultaneously messengers from another dimension and dangerous interlopers. We are their only hope for understanding the great mysteries of the universe, yet also their greatest threat to stability. And ultimately, our very presence forces them to confront the ultimate philosophical query: what if their predetermined path is not the only true path? What if, in fact, free will exists? Let's explore their unique concept of family and kinship. Here, the child doesn't continue the lineage, they initiate it. The child is born ancient, and their parents, who are chronologically younger, look after them. Yet, as time passes, the child grows younger and stronger, while the parents grow younger still. There comes a point when the child becomes their parents' contemporary, then surpasses them developmentally, even while being chronologically younger. Family dynamics are characterized by this perpetual role reversal. Initially, the parents care for their aged infant. Later, the matured yet rejuvenated child begins tending to their parents, who are now regressing into infancy. Generations don't replace one another, they travel toward each other. Grandparents are not ancestors, they are descendants. You are born before your parents, and your own children are born even before you. Their family tree grows downward, not upward. The love between parents and children is equally distinct. It begins with a deep, wise respect for the newborn patriarch, and concludes with a tender, slightly melancholic care for the parents who have become mere children. Here, divorces are called reunions. Two families determine that in the future they were one and thus merge. Conversely, a wedding is a solemn act of separation, a moment when the couple decides that in the future they will not have known each other at all. To us, this entire system seems bewildering, but to them it is completely natural. It rests upon the foundational principle of inevitability. You do not choose your family, you simply remember it, and your sole duty is to live out this family history in reverse, from the final chapter back to the opening scene. But what about entertainment and leisure? How do beings for whom there are no surprises relax? Their cinemas screen films in reverse. Viewers enter the theatre already knowing the outcome and watch the story unwind back toward its origin. The suspense isn't in how it will end, but in how it all began. Their most popular genres are detective stories, where the killer is known at the outset, and the entire mystery revolves around uncovering the initial motive. Theatre productions are also an inversion. A play begins with the actors taking their final bows and the applause fading. They then perform the final act, followed by the penultimate one, moving backward to the very start. Actors don't learn their roles, they systematically forget them as the performance progresses. Sports involve competing for anti-achievements. Track runners start at the finish line and race back toward the start. Victory is awarded to the one who arrives last. Swimmers don't try to cover the distance quickly, on the contrary, they strive to be the slowest. The record is the longest possible time. A game of chess begins with checkmate and players take turns resetting the pieces to their original positions. The loser is the one who successfully returns all their pieces first. All their entertainment serves as a means to relive the already known future. They aren't seeking adrenaline rushes or new experiences. Instead, they seek the aesthetic pleasure of contemplating the impeccably functioning mechanism of time itself. Their leisure time is a meditation on the theme of predetermined fate, a way to reaffirm that everything unfolds as it must, finding beauty and profound peace in this certainty. Let's imagine the education system on Kronos Inversus. It is radically different from ours. Its goal isn't to impart knowledge, but to take it away. A child is born a wise old man. They don't need instruction, they already know everything. The first few years are spent in home unlearning, where parents help them forget the most complex philosophical concepts. Next, they go to university. Here, the professors, who are younger and less intelligent than their students, give lectures designed to erase knowledge. Students take exams where they must demonstrate exactly how much they have forgotten. The top student is the one who submits a blank sheet of paper. After university, they move on to college, where they shed broad erudition. Then comes school, where they forget the basics of writing, arithmetic, and reading. Finally, they reach kindergarten, achieving a state of blissful ignorance. The teacher here is not a source of knowledge, but rather a knowledge extractor. Their job is to create an environment where the process of forgetting can proceed most effectively. Their textbooks are written in vanishing ink. With every page read, the text on it disappears. Libraries are places where books aren't checked out, but checked in, only to be wiped clean afterward. This entire process might seem absurd to us, but it is a logical consequence of their worldview. If life is a journey from knowledge to non-knowing, then education must aid this process, not hinder it. Their ideal is not the enlightened mind, but a clean slate, ready to fade into oblivion. Let's consider the concept of progress. In our common understanding, progress is defined by forward momentum, technological advancement, knowledge accumulation, and an improved standard of living. But on Chronos Inversus, the rules are inverted. For them, true progress is regression. Their civilization actively moves backward, simplifying from the complex to the rudimentary. They recall a future which is effectively our potential future, filled with flying vehicles, sophisticated artificial intelligence, and interstellar voyages. Their current reality, however, is merely a world of standard automobiles and basic computers. Their past, which they are moving toward, is the age of steam engines, followed eventually by the era of stone tools. Their engineers and scientists are not focused on innovation, but on the deconstruction of the obsolete. They dismantle highly complex mechanisms to grasp the principles required to build something far simpler. Their sole objective is simplification, not complication. This philosophy of reverse progress manifests everywhere. Architecture regresses from towering skyscrapers towards simple huts. Medicine shifts from complex genetic engineering back to holistic herbalism. Art moves from intricate symphonies to basic, repetitive chants. Their golden age is not a future promise, but a cherished memory, a distant peak they recall from their complex beginning. Ahead lies only the inevitable return to a primal state. Crucially, they view this not as a tragedy, but as a path to ultimate harmony, a merging with the natural world. They firmly believe that complexity breeds suffering, while simplicity guarantees contentment. Their civilization does not seek to conquer the cosmos, it yearns to dissolve back into it. In this deliberate movement backward, toward the wellspring of existence, they find their own profound and unique meaning. How do chrononauts perceive space? Does their backward flow of time necessitate a fundamentally different spatial understanding? Perhaps. For us, space is an arena for forward motion, a domain to conquer and expand into. But for them, it's something they must actively retreat from. Their journeys aren't trips from point A to point B, but rather the inverse, from B to A. They commence their travels at the destination and conclude them at the point of origin. The map of their world doesn't show where they are, but where they are going to be. They don't discover new territories, they uncover them, erasing them from their charts the moment they leave. Perhaps space itself isn't static for them. If their universe is contracting, the space between objects must constantly be shrinking. Galaxies don't fly apart, they converge. Stars in the night sky grow brighter, not dimmer. Distances are perpetually reduced. This ought to create a profound sense of claustrophobia, the overwhelming feeling that the world is pressing in on them. Yet for them, this is likely routine. It is merely another manifestation of the universal law, the inevitable return to the source, the singularity from which everything once began. Their astronauts don't fly to other planets, they return from them. Their vessels don't launch from a spaceport, they detach from another planet's orbit and safely land back on their homeworld. Space for them is not the final frontier, but the point of origin, and all their aspirations are directed not outward, but inward toward the very center of the contracting cosmos. Let's dive into arguably the most complex and paradoxical topic: causality itself. In our standard world, the cause always precedes the effect. We flip the switch, the cause, and the light turns on, the effect. On Chronos Inversus, however, everything is reversed. The effect precedes the cause, the light goes out, the effect, and, only then, does someone flick the switch, the cause. A shattered vase is lying on the floor, the effect, and a moment later the cat jumps onto the table and knocks it over, the cause. This is known as reverse causality. Living in such a world means constantly observing how reality corrects itself. You see the final outcome, and then you watch the process that was necessary to create it. This radically alters our concepts of responsibility and free will. For instance, if you observe that your house has burned down, you immediately know that sometime in the past, you or someone else will be compelled to set the fire. You cannot choose not to do it. To do so would violate the fundamental law of causality. This creates a world devoid of true randomness. Everything that occurs happens not just because, but because it is necessitated by a future outcome. If you trip and fall, it means that at some point in the future, you were required to be lying on the ground. The physicists in this world do not search for laws describing how effects flow from causes. Instead, they seek laws that describe how causes are mandated by future effects. All their science, philosophy, and daily existence are built upon this single, fundamental principle. They live not in a world of causes, but a world of goals. Every event is defined by its future purpose, and the entire universe moves relentlessly toward the fulfillment of these predetermined ends. This is a world of total teleology, where everything has its destiny. Picture, if you will, the experience of emotions in a world where time runs backward. The joy of a good thing arrives before the event even happens. You might laugh, and then someone tells a joke. You feel relief, and only then do you solve a difficult problem. The emotion always precedes the trigger. But what about grief? The sorrow of losing a loved one would arrive long before their birth. You mourn someone who is still alive and well, and when they finally vanish into non-existence, you feel only joy and serenity. Love, as we've discussed, would start with the pain of parting and conclude with the happiness of that first meeting. Fear isn't dreading what might happen, but an anxious anticipation of the cause of something that has already occurred. For instance, you feel the pain, the consequence, and only later do you see the rock that fell on you, the cause. Your fear isn't aimed at the rock, but at the looming expectation of its impact. This emotional inversion must create a truly bizarre inner state. Your feelings perpetually outpace reality. You exist in a state of constant déjà vu, where emotions act as spoilers for your own life. Perhaps over time, these chrononauts learn to suppress their feelings, preventing them from spoiling the experience of events they already knew. Or conversely, they might cherish this emotional predictability, which spares them from shock and prepares them for any twist of fate. Their emotional world is one without surprises, but perhaps also without deep trauma. Let's take a moment to ponder the concept of free will. Do chronauts possess it? From our perspective, the answer is clearly no. Their future is already etched into their memory, and they simply cannot deviate from it. They are merely puppets in the hands of time, being dragged backward by the inevitable script. Any attempt to act contrary to what they already remember is doomed to fail. If you remember turning right tomorrow, you won't be physically able to turn left. Some unknown force, or perhaps just the inherent logic of their reality, will compel you to make the correct choice. This is hard determinism, pure and simple. But how do they perceive their own lives? Do they view themselves as unfree? Probably not. For them, the concept of freedom might signify something entirely different. For instance, their freedom might not be the freedom to choose, but the freedom from choice. They are spared the agony of deliberation, the agonizing thought of what to do next, the fear of making a mistake, or the regret over a bad decision. Their path is clear and predetermined, and in this they find peace and harmony. For the chronauts, freedom is the ability to align perfectly and completely with their destiny, to be the flawless actor in their own well-rehearsed play. In fact, they might argue that we, with our uncertain futures and supposed free will, are the ones who are truly unfree. We are slaves to our passions, our doubts, and our anxieties. We live in constant fear of failure, but chronauts are free from all of it. They simply exist, secure in the knowledge that everything is proceeding exactly as it should. This is a deeply complex philosophical question, and the answer hinges entirely on what definition we assign to the word freedom. Now that we've delved so deeply into this world, let's consider the paradoxes it creates. The most famous is the grandfather paradox. If you travel back in time and kill your grandfather, you prevent your own birth, which means you couldn't have traveled back in time to kill him. In a world with reverse time, this paradox still exists, but in an inverted form. Let's call it the grandson paradox. Suppose you know you will have a grandson in the future. You remember him clearly, but what if you decide never to have children? You can't do that because it contradicts your memory of the grandson. But what physically prevents you? In their world, this paradox is resolved simply. The very structure of reality won't allow you to make a decision that contradicts an already established future. What about the information paradox? Imagine a scientist in the future invents a perpetual motion machine. He records the blueprint. That information travels back into the past, which is, effectively, our future. Another scientist finds this blueprint and builds the engine. But who then actually invented it? The information emerges seemingly from nowhere, without an original source. This paradox might be the root of their technological regression. All their knowledge is simply information passed back from the future, information that has no definite creator. They don't create anything new, they merely reproduce what has already been created in the future by someone unknown. Their world is riddled with these logical loops and closed circles, and perhaps they have simply learned to ignore them, accepting them as a given, an inherent, unavoidable part of their strange, inverted reality. We are approaching the end of our conceptual journey. It is time to bid farewell to Chronos Inversus. Our vessel is now preparing for launch. We stand in the exact spot where we first arrived, yet for us, vast amounts of time have passed, while for this world, barely a moment has registered. We carry the memories of this incredible place with us, but we leave no trace behind. After all, any mark we made was already here before we arrived, only to vanish the very instant we appeared. One final look at this world, at the trees drawing their leaves back inward, at the rivers flowing up toward the mountains, at the ruins that still remember their future grandeur, at the people walking backward, moving toward their past. This world is not merely a fantasy. It is a thought experiment that forces us to contemplate the most fundamental questions. What is time? What is memory? What is life? We are accustomed to believing that the arrow of time flies in only one direction. But what if that is just one possibility? What if, somewhere in the cosmos, or perhaps in another universe entirely, there exist worlds governed by completely different laws? Worlds where death is the beginning and knowledge is a curse. Worlds where free will is absent, but absolute tranquility prevails. Exploring such hypothetical realities expands our consciousness. It helps us understand how fragile and unique our own experience truly is. It compels us to appreciate our unknown future, our capacity for choice, and our ability to innovate and create something entirely new. And so, our ship pulls away from the surface. The reverse time planet recedes, shrinking rapidly, becoming a pinpoint of light that then seems to collapse into itself and vanish. We are returning to our normal reality, where time flows forward. Once again, we feel the future unfold before us, a canvas of endless possibilities and inherent uncertainty. We can plan again, dream, make mistakes, and actually correct them. The experience on Chronos Inversus leaves a permanent mark. It fundamentally shifts our perception. Now, looking at an elderly person, we don't just see decline, we imagine them preparing for a fresh beginning. When we look upon ruins, we see not only the past, but the potential for reconstruction and growth. Listening to music, we contemplate the silence from which it emerged and to which it will eventually return. We are beginning to grasp that past, present, and future are not simply segments on a straight line. They are intricate, interconnected concepts, our past lives within our memory, shaping our present, and our present, the choices we make today, is what actively forges our future. We are not passive observers, mere chrono-navigators. We are the active architects of our own time. This is both our greatest responsibility and our profoundest gift. The journey is over, but the contemplation of it has only just begun. Perhaps these reflections will help us better understand ourselves and our true place in this vast, mysterious cosmos. Our vessel has returned to its starting point. The journey to the planet where time runs backward is now complete. We encountered a world turned inside out, where death is birth, where knowledge is a heavy burden, and where the future is nothing more than an unchangeable memory. We met a civilization living under conditions of total predetermination, a place devoid of surprises or free will, yet possessing its own unique sense of harmony. This world forced us to re-examine the things we take for granted: love that begins with a farewell, art that strives for emptiness, and progress that ultimately leads to simplicity. But the greatest revelation was the realization of just how precious our own reality truly is. Our right not to know the future, our ability to choose our own path, our capacity to be surprised, to make mistakes, and to learn, these are not mere facts of existence. They are a profound gift. This lecture was less a journey through space and more an exploration deep into our own consciousness, right down to the foundations of how we perceive the world. And now, as you settle back into your room, into your bed, you can feel the familiar flow of time gently lulling you. The past is behind us. The future is unknown. There is only this moment, a moment of stillness and peace. Allow the images of that strange, inverted world to dissolve, leaving behind only a feeling of deep, profound relaxation. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this journey helped you relax and prepare for sleep, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future lectures. And now, as you drift off, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. If you had the ability to know your entire future completely, from beginning to end, would you choose to see it? Feel free to share your answer in the comments once you wake up. For now, simply rest. Good night and sweet dreams.